Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. You may notice that we are in the usual chatty get ready with me location today, but that is not what we are doing. I am filming here today because I have a bunch of stuff that I want to film today and get done. However, they are doing something out front of my house, and it is very loud and you can hear it completely from my normal filming spot. So we're filming in here today because I don't want all that background noise and I don't know how long they're going to be doing stuff. I think road work or electrical, something out there that is very noisy. But that kind of works because it lets me do this video in a slightly more informal way, which is kind of fun and a little bit more relaxed for me. But today I want to talk about the content that I create and also like the target audience for that content. So as you know, the last video I posted was all about like piercing classes and like these programs that people can take to try and learn how to be a piercer, and why like 99% of them are like literal garbage and not how you would want to learn how to be a piercer. And if you didn't get to see that video, I will link it in this video as well so you can watch it because it's really good. But I think a logical follow-up to me talking about that is me talking about the content I create. Because up until basically now, the vast majority of my content has been directed at clients. I make content with the goal of educating clients about safe and good practices with their piercing, whether it's how piercings are going to heal, how to pick a good piercer, or things you might not think about like skin conditions and body piercing or makeup and piercings. And a part of this was because I just felt more comfortable creating content for clients, but the other part of it was because I felt like there was already a lot of content out there that was piercer focused. There's a lot of piercers who have Patreons and podcasts and blogs where they talk about stuff that's really specific for other piercers, and there weren't as many piercers creating that type of content for clients, and I felt like it was really important to fill that void. But as many of you may be aware of, I recently attended the Association of Professional Piercers annual conference, APP conference in Vegas. It was amazing. It was wonderful. It was so educational. I got to meet so many wonderful people there. And I got asked a lot if I would ever create content for piercers and do more content that was more piercing instructional. Because right now when I do create content for piercers, I'm pretty focused on things like abuse and misconduct in the industry, and working on like improving ethical things like making our studios more accessible to more clients and things like that. But I don't really do any like piercing technique or piercing method or like piercer related content like that. And so I really wanted to take some time to sit down and make a video about it and just kind of express my thoughts on it and my concerns on it, and get some feedback from y'all, the type of content that you want to see from me. Oh, hello. We have a visitor. A guest has arrived. You always do this. You're not part of this channel. I'm sorry. You're just not. So on one hand, like I mentioned, there are a lot of piercers who create content for piercers, really awesome, informative, educational content that is really beneficial. And there's not as many people who are creating content for clients. Now that's definitely changed over recent years. And there are a lot more piercers producing content for clients, which is amazing. I'm super excited to see it. I love that there's more education being out there. So there's more access to that than ever. Although I still think we see more piercers creating content for piercers than we do for clients overall. So that is great. And I love that that is more accessible. And I love that that is a thing that we're seeing offered more often. Because of that, I do feel like I could probably find a balance where creating content for piercers doesn't necessarily take away from the content that I create for clients. And in fact, a lot of content that I can create can be beneficial for both. For example, my floating navel video, I definitely went into that really wanting to educate clients about their own anatomy and about what worked for their bodies. But I also approached it from the hope of maybe educating piercers who didn't have the same access to education about floating navels. And I think that that was really successful at being educational for both halves. My other big concern and holdup in creating content for piercers is people who are not piercers or are not trained professionals taking the content that I create and using it to do unsafe piercings at home or dangerous piercings at home. Or piercers who are in studios or do have access to studios taking educational content that I create and using it to say that they are completely trained to do these piercings or they've been educated by me. And this is an issue that I know friends of mine who create content for piercers have had to deal with. There are some really good resources and like videos online and podcasts and blogs that have gone over things like genital piercing techniques or doth piercing techniques. And people have watched this video or read this blog and then turned around and said to clients in their studios, oh yeah, I was trained by this person. Or I watched this video about how to do genital piercings and now I'm ready to offer it. And then clients have in turn reached back out to the original piercer and been like, this person messed up my piercings and said you trained them or you were who taught them how to do this. What the fuck? And that person had to be like, they just watched a video I post or just listened to a podcast or just took a class. So, I mean, obviously I could put disclaimers on my content that, you know, this is just intended as like an educational supplement and it in no way means that you are allowed to say that you were trained by me or that you are prepared or ready to offer these services. But if a client reached back out to me and was like, yeah, someone said that they were trained by you and they did this, that would be crushing. So that is a concern for me. And I thought about maybe doing like a Patreon and putting my stuff that was like more educational content for piercers behind like a membership, like a paywall, or doing membership on YouTube and maybe like twice a month producing content specifically for piercers and having it behind my membership. Obviously, there's no way for me to like vet every person who would subscribe to a Patreon or a YouTube membership to make sure they're actually a piercer. So I'd basically just be putting it behind a paywall just so it wasn't completely floating out on the internet for everyone to have access to. But also because when I was at conference and having some conversations with folks about doing content for piercers, a number of different friends and also studio owners that I was talking to were like, if you do that, you had better figure out a way to get paid for doing that. Because like, it's one thing, the labor that you do for clients to learn and get educated and have safe access, and like, that's great. But if you're actually taking the time to take the education that you've spent 10 years of your life getting and put it out there online and give it to people who don't work with you, who like you don't know and all this stuff, like basically putting it out there for free, that's a huge amount of labor. And now you're directly training people and you need to be paid for that. Like that is enough labor that there needs to be compensation. And that kind of segues me into my next bit, which is that if I did make this content and put it behind a paywall, I do think that would help make the content a little bit safer online and a little bit less likely to fall into the hands of folks who would use it in ways they really shouldn't. But it also allows me to be directly compensated for my time and labor and effort in producing this content. On the flip side, I worry that putting it behind a paywall, even a reasonable one, like let's say I did a YouTube membership that was like whatever, $10 a month or like $20 a month, and I did 2 or 3 videos for that membership every month, right? And I, you know, not something like super expensive or whatever the case may be. I still worry that that's me not being accessible enough, because I know there are piercers out there who typically are the ones in the worst situations who could benefit the most from this education and knowledge, and are also the ones who would struggle the most to be able to afford to pay for this education and knowledge. So if I put it behind a paywall, yes, I'm keeping the information probably a little bit safer, but am I also reducing the amount of people who can get access to it, who really need it? And is it ethical for me to put this information behind a paywall, understanding that that's going to make this less accessible to people who need it most? On the flip side, all of the content that I create currently is free. My TikTok, my blog, my YouTube, everything, like completely free. No one has to pay for access to my content. And I spend hours and hours and hours every month creating content, a huge amount of time. And I don't really make a lot of money doing that. It'd be really nice if I did. I would love to turn content creation into something that I did more full time. But as it stands right now, I make enough to cover like maybe one bill from doing content creation. And doing content creation for educational content for piercers would be a lot more work. So on one hand, I do feel like that's work and labor that would be worth being compensated for. On the other hand, I really struggle with making that content then more inaccessible to the people who need it most. And I haven't completely looked into if there's a way, like with YouTube memberships or with Patreon, that I can like allow someone access. Like if someone messaged me and was in a place of financial hardship and couldn't afford it, like I could just give them access to that. Or if I know I'm obviously like I could manually send them videos and content, but that's a ton of work as well. And then like everyone would be emailing me asking me to send it to them for free, and I would have to spend like hours like formatting and processing and like sending. It would be a lot. So I don't really know. The purpose of this video is that I don't really know. I've spent a really long time intentionally staying away from creating content for piercers. A, because I felt like there were enough other people doing it and I didn't feel like I had anything to add. And B, because of these questions that I've brought up in this that I just don't really have an answer to. So I wanted to make this video as kind of a part 2 to my piercing schools thing to A, get your input on what you would like to see from me and what you think is fair and equitable but also accessible, and B, give you an idea of kind of the thought process that goes into creating some of this content. Because a lot of times online I have people who go like, oh Lynn, like why don't you create like educational resources or classes online for piercers or share this education, and there's so much that goes into making this. Like this, we haven't even touched on how much filming and editing and recording and like visual guides and like just effort it would be to create content for piercers that was like actually educational and really useful. And then on top of like the ethical questions surrounding like, how do I host it online? How do I make sure it's not being used incorrectly? How do I protect my name in doing this? And how do I get compensated for my work or my labor? Do I do it all for free out of aims for accessibility? What does that mean for me, for the time that I am losing from doing things that actually make me money to survive? Ethically, where is that line? Like piercers who do this stuff who definitely way overcharge for it and do not do this in, I think, an ethical or an accessible or an equitable way. But I've also known too many piercers who have done all of this for free and completely burnt themselves out, and also burned bridges within the industry. So like where is that happy medium? So these are some of the thoughts that I have going into this. This is some of what I've been considering. But if you are a piercer or an apprentice or someone in the industry who would like to see me make industry-specific educational content, be it techniques, be it studio stuff, whatever the case may be, I would love to hear from you in the comments what you think. I would also love to hear people's thoughts about accessibility if I were to create content like this. Should I do it as a YouTube membership? Would I do it as a Patreon? What would the cost be? What would a fair amount be? Should there be any cost at all? Is it inaccessible to charge for this? Like, what does an equitable system of this type of additional continuing education look like? I would love to hear from you and start some dialogue in the comments. And if you are, again, like a piercer or an apprentice and you want to reach out to me directly to talk about ideas or thoughts you have, I would love that. Please DM me, email me. My inbox is always open. I'm always here. So yeah, I'm really excited to hear everyone's feedback and thoughts on me potentially creating more piercer targeted or piercer specific content, and I'm excited to see where this goes. As per usual, if you like my videos, please hit like and subscribe, and I look forward to chatting with you and maybe teaching you and creating more educational content very soon. Bye!